We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All right, so I'm going to make a video here about my favorite Christmas. All right? So, and I'm an old lady, so there's been a lot of Christmases. And there's been a lot of great Christmases, make no mistake about it. I had the kind of mom and dad that were really devoted to their children, their family and their home. We were the priority, I think. My dad was, he was a professional. My mom was a college educated person, and yet, we did the whole Chevy Chase family vacation. Summertime, we were always camping, Yellowstone or whatever. Traveled the world together, and always, everywhere we went, everybody in the family, our wants and our preferences and our needs were taken into account in terms of planning. So for like me as a little 12, well, maybe 11 to 17, 18, 25, there always had to be horseback riding. So no matter where we would stop to camp, is there horseback riding? And, my brother wanted something else, and my other brother wanted, always had to be a swimming pool. So it might take some time. It might take another couple hundred, miles until we found just the right place in the mountains or the desert or wherever we happened to be driving around. So that was kind of the climate that I grew up in. It was that, children are valuable, family's valuable, and we had a lot of fun together. My mom taught us to sing. We all sang together all the time, and played games. We were always playing Monopoly. Was sure to cause a family brawl, no question. My mother was vicious at the game of Monopoly. But so I think the benefits to growing up in a family like that is that it creates kids that have a really strong identity, right? You grow up in a family like that where you're living to give your children experiences, and you do it with them. You teach them how to be friendly to others. You teach them how to start up a conversation with strangers. You teach them how to make friendly gestures, or to notice when someone else is making a friendly gesture towards you. You teach them how do you respond appropriately when you're anxious and overwhelmed. Because let's face it, life is definitely going to give you moments of stress. We live in a complicated culture and a complicated period of time, and there will be periods of time where the demands on us are greater than our available resources. And so stress and anxiety is just it's just the name of the game. It's just gonna happen. And acceptance of that fact, recognizing that it's not some sort of a judgment on you that you somehow have lived a bad life and that's why bad things happen to you. That's not true. The world gives problems, and it also gives us great miracles. And so we got to be ready emotionally and equipped to deal with each. So my favorite Christmas memory is related to that idea of resilience, that you go through life living, looking for experiences, regardless how big or small they may be, but then you live it. Right? Whether it's good or bad, you live it always with the goal of how do I get the most out of this moment, even if it's a tragedy or a bad thing. So I grew up with parents that were adventuresome. They wanted to see the world, and they wanted to live. And me and my siblings, we were the beneficiaries of their adventuresome spirit. And that means living in Africa. And so we were quite young, living in Africa. And, the Africa today is not really the Africa that we grew up in. The Africa we grew up in, well, I used to go to the market with my nanny, and it was like something that you would see out of like a 1950s movie. There would be bush people there trading, people with chameleons for sale, or little tigers, or I mean, it was definitely experience. We used to have the juju dancers come around. They would come around only on certain certain periods of time. I guess it was like a religious observation maybe, but they would be all dressed up in these grass skirts from head to toe. You couldn't see the human. They were just these, whirling dervish with grass skirts. And it was very frightening for a little kid not to understand, what it was. But nonetheless, so we were off on this great adventure to Africa. Now, my dad had been there for quite a while, several years working. And so he wanted to go back. And my mom was like, absolutely not. We can't do this again. You leaving, and I've got the kids here. No, we can't do this again. And so they made arrangements to bring us with them. And they did have a school there that was for the expats, and that was for like the British children, the Western, kids. And I think, if I remember correctly, I should ask my mom, I think I must have been like between the ages of 9 and 14, I believe, something like that. And so they had a club, like a country club, that had a great big swimming pool for all the Westerners, and there was a swimming pool, and they had a movie night. They had a big movie cinema there. We could go. There were a couple of restaurants, and then like an auditorium where we would put on shows, and things like that. Well, we didn't know. My parents didn't know really what it was gonna, be like. My dad was like, "Well, yeah, there's different food, and we'll figure it out, and you can get orange soda, Fanta, but no Coca-Cola, And so it's just." It wasn't like it is now, that you didn't have FedEx flying things around the globe. I mean, when you got there, it was pretty. I mean, we used to go to Wari, which was in the Congo, and one time we got stuck there a couple of weeks because the elephants knocked down the communication lines, and so that was kind of cool. But anyway, so it was really primitive. It was really kind of the real deal. And during that period of time, we moved there. It was during the summer when we first moved there. We had a safe compound that we lived in. It was all built up, these big 12 feet, 14 foot, concrete fencing and gates and stuff around the compound. Anyway, so it got time for Christmas. And my parents were like, oh no, we didn't think about Christmas when we packed up all our supplies and sent them. Because before they came, they got a year's worth of supplies, like medications and contacts and anything that you would really need, tampons, anything that you would really need that you really wouldn't find there, because it was still very, very primitive, not like it is today. And then they sent it over in this shipment, and the shipment took like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months to get there. And so Christmas time came, and my parents were like, oh my God, we didn't think about Christmas. What are we going to do? There's no Christmas. And of course, Santa Claus has to come, right? I mean, we were little. And so they never let on. They never said anything. We were just like, yay, Christmas, Christmas. And we got a Christmas tree. I don't even remember what kind of tree it was. And covered it we made these aluminum balls and had some shells on it. I mean, we decorated it. Somewhere my parents ended up getting lights. I don't remember how that came to pass. Oh, maybe, okay, so they had a friend from England, Miles, a polo player. And I believe maybe he brought some stuff for my mom and dad. But anyway, so they, they did what they always did. They always made the best of the moment and made it fun and happy and festive. And, it didn't even occur to us that there wouldn't be any presents, right? Like we just expected what we had always gotten, which was all, looked like a toy store when you'd come down in the morning. And so we did everything the same. We had my parents' Christmas Eve had party, and they had some of their Western friends come over. We sang Christmas carols. We sat outside in the backyard. My dad kept showing, look, there's Santa, and all the kids were looking. Of course, we were like, yeah, we can see him, and we couldn't. But it was a star, and with your imagination, it was moving, right? And so everything was the same. And then it was time to go to bed. And I remember too, we watched something with the moon landings. I don't remember. I'll have to check with my mom. I remember all the kids gathering around the TV and watching that, but I don't remember when that may have been a different party, but it was the same Christmas, first year in Africa, no idea, what to do. And so we went to sleep, and in the middle of the night I woke up, and I remember thinking, is that a goat? And then I thought, no, it's a reindeer. And in my own head, I turned it into the sound of a reindeer. And so I, did what I had always been instructed to do, which was you got to go right back to sleep if you hear anything, because if you wake up, then the magic is broken, and then no more Santa happens. And so I went back to sleep. Well, in the morning, when we woke up, we peeked down the stairs, and we didn't see all the brightly colored packages, and that we normally did. And we were like, oh my gosh, maybe he hasn't come yet, And so finally, my mom and dad yelled and said, y'all need to wake up, come down, blah, blah, blah. And when we went downstairs, Santa Claus had brought goats, baby rabbits, some lovebirds, and magically, somehow, Santa and his elves built an aviary in the backyard for the monkey. So Santa brought us monkeys, lovebirds, goats, George Goat was his name, goat, and baby rabbits, and built a big, nice, pretty cage for all the animals. And that was Christmas. And we never batted an eye. It didn't seem unusual. It just seemed special and appropriate. And that was how my mom and dad, presented it. It was like, oh, look, Santa knows that if you live in Africa, then it's okay to have these kinds of animals. And this is the kind of gift that you would never get if you were back in the United States. And isn't this wonderful and special? And we just rolled with it. We just felt like the luckiest kids, in the world. So that was a big, I look back on that, and that was a big lesson for me in terms of when life hands you lemons, make lemon pie, right? So that was really my favorite memory. I thought it was hilarious, though. The next year, and we have photographs of this. The next year, when we came down the stairs, you could hear angels singing, because as we walked down the stairs, we had this big, gorgeous, huge Christmas tree, like a fake tree, big, huge fake tree that had been put up, and the number of presents, the whole living room was covered in, it was like a toy store. It was crazy. And I remember me and my older brother standing there, and we kind of looked at each other like, this is weird, because we were waiting on, maybe it'll be a pony this year or another goat, right? We were remembering the year before, and when we came down, it was just whoosh. It was just toys everywhere. And we were, like, what happened? Both of us couldn't move because we were like, this is weird. Like, what's going on here? And so, and then of course we tore into it, and had a great time. And there was a big party. We had a lot of people that came over that Christmas, and there were a lot of kids there. And I remember I got this Barbie set of, like, it was a washer and a dryer and kitchen appliances, but they all worked. Like, you'd put batteries in them and they had lights on them and they would make sounds. And even the washing machine that had a little reservoir you could put water, and then the water would like squirt out onto the clothes. I mean, this was cool, like truly cool. I got that and I put those back. I didn't let those be out. Couple of Barbies particular that I really wanted. And then I had this, my mom and dad were in Austria, and she bought me this huge dollhouse, but it was like Versailles. It had the gilded woodwork in it, and the like the little chairs and whatnot were made of wood. They were hand carved, and they had velvet coverings on them, little glass chandeliers that worked, like the lights worked. I mean, this thing was crazy. And so that, we definitely took that and put that up so that, nobody could choose that. But then everything else, all the toys, we just left it all out. Everybody came over for the big Christmas party, eating, and, they were there all day long, music and whatnot. And we just told all the kids, just take what you want, just take it, So there were a lot of kids that only got a few things because the parents didn't know, they were new workers coming in or whatnot. And so they ended up getting toys too. So it turned out to be, it was really great. So I asked my mom about that. I can remember later on, and I said, I remember, that Christmas where the whole living room was like a toy store. It was just like hundreds of toys. And she said that she had felt horrible about the Christmas before, with the goats and the rabbits and the monkey and the birds. And she had felt so guilty about that in the summer when we came back, she did a Christmas shopping trip. And so she went and bought a bunch of stuff and then boxed it up and had it shipped over to Africa for the Christmas. And she said she guessed that she just went crazy because she was feeling guilty, and every time she'd see something amazing, she'd buy it and say, I got to put this back for Christmas. And that's how I ended up with that amazing dollhouse from Austria. But anyway, yeah, so those were the two. They're kind of, in my mind, they're kind of the same era of Christmas because they went hand in hand, The one where really my favorite was getting all the animals. That was, even like when we were in South America, we had a Christmas, and of course, we had toys and things that they had sent over. By that time they had learned their lesson. But I came out and I saw a saddle, and when I saw the saddle, I knew right then what that was. And so I went running outside, and so there was Felix, my horse. And the way he got his name Felix is because I named him Feliz Navidad, and Feliz Navidad turned into Felix. And he was Felix the horse. And when I was on the bus going to school, all the older kids would make fun of me, and they would say, "Una mango para Felix." And I would get so mad at them. So anyway, back to my favorite Christmas with the goats and the birds. That was the best. And then followed up by the next year where it was a Christmas of complete and total excess, to go from the minimum to the maximum, and then everything that was in between, and then letting all those kids come in and pick the toys that they wanted, and having all the people there. And I remember sitting on the floor and listening to all the adults telling funny stories, and it's just a good life. We grew up in a nice way, and I think that's something that our kids today are really lacking. I think that we parents have gotten really busy. I think we're really, really busy. We're so focused on trying to just make the rent, make the mortgage, that we've sort of left our kids to grow up by themselves. And we shouldn't do that because they don't know how to do it. They don't naturally know how to grow up being happy. And if you don't believe me, just look at the number of people today that have drug and alcohol problems. They are suffering with an identity issue. And the idea of just be happy, just relax, go for a walk, just take a deep breath and just calm yourself. That idea is foreign to them. They don't understand it. So if you have kids in your home or grandkids, be present, be aware of them and spend time with them, even if it's just to talk about, hey, where'd this flour come from? How do they make sugar? Where did this start? Teach them how to plant a tomato plant. Just be present. You don't have to take them to crazy Disney World, vacations. You just have to sit down and read a book with them. That's all. All right. Alexander's Very Horrible, Terrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. It's one of the greatest books ever written. Buy that for your kid this Christmas, even if your kid is 30 years old. If you've never read Alexander's Very Bad, Terrible, No Good, Horrible, Very Bad Day, you need to. It's pretty good. All right. Merry Christmas, people.